Tony and Michael, thanks for coming over, and I'm really interested in the story about high-rises.
Well, the first person I thought about when we were thinking about this discussion today would be you. You were the mayor of downtown, and you really helped build downtown, right?
Some people call me the mayor, and some people call me, Mr. Downtown. I like to say downtown is an overnight wonder I've been working on since 1994. We have built a great downtown. Nobody used to want to be here, but now they do.
Yeah.
And it involves high-rise buildings.
Today I'd like to visit a place where you kind of really made roots in downtown. That would probably be, I guess, the old Bank District, right? That's where I met you 20 some years ago, right?
Yep, yeah, over 22. Until 1965, the tallest buildings in downtown were 13 stories, about 150 feet. And we were a low-rise city for a lot of reasons. But under Tom Bradley in the 60s, we started building a high-rise buildings up on Bunker Hill. And the buildings down here basically became functionally obsolete, and they were empty for 40 years. And in 1999, a new law was passed called the Adaptive Reuse Ordinance that allowed these empty buildings to be converted into residential. And a man named Tom Gilmore was the first person to take advantage of it with 3 historic buildings on 4th Street between Spring and Main. And I left corporate America. I was a broker at Cushman & Wakefield to go lease loft-style apartments in the historic downtown.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
We should also maybe check out one of the newer projects that you were involved with.
Well, the Grand LA, otherwise known as the Grand Avenue Project, it has just opened. Scooter and I, my dog, were the first guests of the Conrad Hotel. I help to convince people to invest lots of money in downtown, so I like to be their first return on investment. So I'm often the first guest or the first customer. I've been first guest at the Intercontinental Hotel, the proper Hotel Figueroa, and this past week, I was the first guest of the Conrad Hotel. I didn't have children in this lifetime, but I enjoy having a city and contributing toward it and creating life and people and opportunity, and it's a great joy of my life.
People say that life kind of happens over the dinner table, right? That's really kind of where. So let's find a place. Well, what is your favorite place to nearby?
Well, I live at 3rd and Spring in an 1899 building that we converted into housing. We're a block away from the Grand Central Market, which has been around since 1917. So it's really great just to walk over to the Grand Central Market and go to one. Yeah, well, and we'll have a nice meal, and maybe we'll have some tacos or something.
So Hal, first of all, I want to thank you for bringing us into the Bank District area of downtown Los Angeles.
The old Bank District.
The old.
Got to get that right.
So tell us, how did you get involved with the evolution of downtown?
Well, we don't have enough time to talk about all that, but what I could tell you is that in the year 2000, because of a new law called the Adaptive Reuse Ordinance, we started to convert old office buildings, which were empty, into residential.
Yeah.
And a man named Tom Gilmore redeveloped this whole area, including this bank building, and we dubbed it the Old Bank District. And just like Hollywoodland was a residential development, we just made it up. The first building that we converted is right here. It's called the San Fernando Building. It was built by J.B. Lankershim, who owned about half of the San Fernando Valley. This neighborhood was very, very rough when we got here. And speaking of rough, that's how I came up with the idea to be dog friendly. It's hard to be a renter and have a doggy, because landlords are concerned about pee and poop and wear and tear. Well, we had these old buildings and we had sealed the floors with epoxy, the concrete floors, which is, non-porous.
Perfect for animals.
Yeah, it's perfect for animals. So we became dog friendly, and I leased 235 loft-style apartments to 350 people with 100 dogs and about 100 cats too. And that changed the world. It created community because people were now on the streets with their dogs, walking their dogs. If we were just walking down the street and I started talking to you, Michael, uninvited, you'd be like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
But if you have a dog and I have a dog, I can go, oh, your dog's really cute. What's your dog's name? And so it created a community, it created life. And so it was magical. So I call myself the dog father of downtown.
So Hal, tell us about the Continental buildings.
This was downtown skyscraper, Tony. It's 175 feet tall. It was built in 1904 and designed by John Parkinson. And when it was built, it was so tall that the community was disturbed by how tall it was. And so the city council reduced the height limit to 150 feet. So from the building of this building in '04 into the building of the Transamerica building in South Park area by the 10 freeway in 1965.
Yeah, that was in the
this was that was in the 1965.
Right.
So this was the tallest commercial office building in downtown Los Angeles. City Hall itself, which was also designed by Parkinson, was completed in between 28 and 29. It's 454 feet tall, but it's not a commercial office building. It's a government center.
From what you know, what was the reason for the height limit?
It was aesthetic. It was purely aesthetic. It was a height limit that people believed that 175 was too tall. In real estate economics, Michael, you want to build as much floor space as possible because the land is the land, and the more building you can put on it, the more rents you can get.
Hal, this project was envisioned 15 years ago, and it was just recently completed. It really does symbolize, I think, anyway, the future of Los Angeles.
I think density is always the future of every city, and this whole city block is density. It's called the Grand LA. It's right across from the Walt Disney Concert Hall, and interestingly enough, Frank Gehry, who designed the concert hall, also designed these beautiful buildings. But one of the concerns has always been, since the Disney Concert Hall was completed in October of 2003, is that the other architecture in and around the hall didn't compete with the hall. It would complement it. You know, high-rise living has become more popular in Los Angeles during the last couple of decades.
What makes it popular?
People like to live in a place where they don't have to take care of a yard or a pool, but they can have a yard and a pool. The amenities are here and taken care of by other people. They can just worry about their busy lives and being in an environment that they can enjoy. Density is important because we shouldn't be using up lots of land that requires water. And we're seeing that now. We're in a drought situation. But density is a good thing because people, if they live in a more dense environment, it makes it more walkable. So they can go to, here in downtown Los Angeles, you can go to a restaurant, you can go to a bar, you can go to the Walt Disney Concert Hall, and you can walk. You can't walk from Northridge or Sherman Oaks to the Walt Disney Concert Hall, right? So, and it also is important regarding mass transit. Transit needs density as well. And so it's all about going vertically when you can. And if you can't go high-rise vertical, going vertical on what's called a podium, and then some 5 floors of construction above it. So I call that suburban urban.
Suburban urban.
Yeah.
So now what makes up this building? What's here?
Well, it's an entire city block. So this is called the Conrad, which is part of the Hilton Hotel family. And it's a high-end 4 or 5 star hotel. I'd call it 5 actually. I was the first guest.
It feels like a 5-star.
Yeah, it's a 5-star hotel. So I was the first guest of the hotel. And the reason I was first guest of the hotel is I've been working for 15 years with Related and their partners to help get it built. So I like to be their first return on investment. And so Scooter and I were the first customers.
What is it that you think is now attracting people to the city?
It's a sense of community. In the suburbs, there's nothing wrong with the suburbs and kind of waving at your neighbor and never even having coffee with them, even though they live next door.
Right.
That's okay. But the people that tend to move to downtown Los Angeles are more into saying hello to their neighbors, sitting on the patio or by the pool in the common areas. They can still live in shared spaces, and you can still live anonymously in a high-rise in downtown or anywhere else. Or you could choose to be seen in the lobby and say hello to your neighbors. So I think you can have your cake and eat it too. If you want privacy, just go to your apartment and close the door. It's privacy. If you feel like interacting and being a social person, you can do that too. So I think it's the best of both worlds.
Downtown is obviously one part of this. There's Hollywood, there's Century City, there's
the Wilshire Corridor by UCLA.
The Wilshire Corridor, Koreatown, now in downtown obviously is seeing probably the most of this kind of high-rise living construction going on. So what do you envision the city looking like in 100 years from now?
Well, 100 years from now, I'd like there to be millions and millions of square feet of new towers. New towers. Right now, if you look at downtown Los Angeles, our skyline of the financial district and an area called South Park and where we are now called Bunker Hill is about 65 blocks. That's where the high-rise buildings are. But we could go another mile and a half over to the LA River from here where it's 1 story tall. So a lot of that should be high-rise. And we should be decreasing our water needs and our water requirements. So what you could do in a high-rise building and building to the sky is you can use stuff like, it's called gray water. So some of the water that's coming from your kitchen sink can be filtered and used to water plants, for instance. So whole systems can be set up that just make a lot more sense.
It's a lot better for the environment.
Yeah, exactly. Less of a carbon footprint. Cities respond to a lot of different things, including job creation. And the more jobs there are in an area, the more people need to live there. And now in the era of COVID, one of the things that we learned is less people are coming to their office. So all these big office buildings that we see behind us. So I predict that what we're going to see is portions of these buildings will be converted to residential.
We were just talking about that. I was told that these buildings are only 30% actually occupied. Now they may be leased 80%, but only 30% occupied, and we're now well outside of the pandemic now. We're kind of really come to the very fringes of it.
Yeah, well, people learned that they could work from home.
Right. So,
and now when we have $8 gas, it makes a lot more sense to continue working from home and not making a commute.
So a building like the US Bank Tower, some of these other buildings which are, seem to be fairly empty of people, not necessarily leases, but of people, might lean towards being converted to housing, right?
Yeah, and it's an expensive proposition to convert it.
You got to do the plumbing and all that.
Yeah, you got to do all that stuff, but it's less expensive than having a building with a mortgage with no income because nobody wants to rent it for office space.
Right.
That's really how you have to look at it. You have to look at a longer term view to make it work. But what a great thing if you lived in US Bank Tower and then take the elevator and go to your WeWork space and be able to do your Zoom calls up there instead of having the dog barking in the background.
Maybe that should be your next venture.
Well, that's what I'm working on already. So.
Of course you are. Because you're who?
I'm Hal Bastian.
That's right.
The Grand Central Market's been here since 1917. It's a real treasure in the community, and there's a lot of tenants in this market that I helped to recruit to open in downtown LA. And
so we were talking about all the new construction, and it's all happening all around us here in this area.
All the cranes that you see now have been in process. The developments have been in process for many years. Sometimes good things come to those who wait.
So, but in addition to all the towers that are going up and everything, you've been involved with also the retail, with the food and stuff coming in as well. So you recruited a lot of restaurants for the area.
Right. Yeah, I've been in downtown since 1994. As a commercial real estate broker with Cushman & Wakefield, and that area is now called the Block.
Right.
And then in 2000, I left corporate America to go lease loft-style apartments that Tom Gilmore was building in old office buildings under the adaptive reuse ordinance. And then after that, I went to work for the Business Improvement District from 01 to 14. So my job was to be the salesman of downtown for a long time. So some people call me Mr. Downtown, and some people call me the mayor of downtown. I think of myself as the butler of downtown. Yeah, because butlers take care of everyone and everything, and downtown is my mansion. It's my internal job to take care of everybody and make things happen.
Let's talk about food. So Michael, what did you have? You got the chicken from...
The half chicken, and this is from the barbecue location next door.
Yep. And this is the one, I think this is one of your favorites, right?
Yeah, this is carne asada from Roast to Go, which is on the center aisle of the market.
Which is really kind of an old standby here at the market, right? They're one of the oldest vendors in the market.
1952.
And I got the mixta tostada from La Tostaderia, which is just down here, which is one of the newer vendors, I believe.
In 1924, 100,000 people lived in downtown LA. After World War II, we started to suburbanize here in Southern California, and downtown became less relevant. We built things like Century City and Warner Center, and people moved away from the center of the city.
As they did in a lot of cities.
All cities throughout America.
Right.
When I got to downtown LA in the 90s, the population was 18,000 people, all right? And today it's 86,000, and we've grown that over the last 2 decades as we've rediscovered the city as a place that you can live and work and play.
5 times.
Right. And we're just getting started.
One of the reasons why I love this place is also the fact that, it's a kind of it's like the living room of downtown, I like to call it, because everyone, whether you're rich or you're poor, whether you work in the towers up here above us or you live in the towers, down the street, it brings everyone together in one spot. You really get a kind of, pardon the pun, a flavor of LA here when you come into the market.
Well, downtown is all about diversity, socioeconomic diversity, language diversity, ethnicity, you name it, it's all here. And downtown is for everybody. It's for the poorest of the poor to the richest, of the rich. My job was to help promote the greater downtown area. I had a vision as a human being, and we in the community had a vision to continue building and changing and doing better. And so I just told my truth about where I saw us going, and some people believed it, and they did it, and I was right.